This talk is called Love, Same-Sex Attraction, and Tolerance. I do not like this title. So, no, because I don't like the title. I think this is nothing about tolerance. What we're going to talk about, it has nothing to do with tolerance at all. We're going to talk about love. We're going to talk about same-sex attraction, but we're not going to talk about tolerance. Here's why. And if you're as you're coming in, if you could keep it down, that would really help the rest of everyone as you're coming in. Just keep it down. That'd be fantastic. Because this is a serious topic, but it has nothing to do with tolerance. Serious topic has nothing to do with tolerance. People say, oh, no, it's about acceptance. That has very little to do with acceptance. Because I think when it comes to talking about a topic like we're going to talk about right now, there's a tendency people have to talk about this kind of thing and talk about us and them. So those people who experience same-sex attraction, they're somewhere else, and that's not true. And what we typically, when we do this, we talk about that. That's the idea. The idea is, okay, those people over there, and we're here in church, and we're not those people. And I have to right off the bat, and I know, especially when it comes into this kind of conversation, this kind of a talk, this kind of topic, a lot of times the first thing, because I know I guarantee you, there are people in this room right now, that's part of your experience. Part of your experience is you experience same-sex attraction. And I know there's many people here, part of your experience is you have someone in your family or someone you love very, very much who experiences same-sex attraction. And so when you come into a talk like this, you know, it can be one of those situations where we start talking and all of a sudden you feel like you're on the outside. We start talking and all of a sudden it feels like, you know, your ears are getting red as we're talking about this thing, and you're like, what's he gonna say next? Is he gonna, like, you know, drop a bomb and be, you know, mean about someone that I love or about my own life? And I have to start off this whole talk saying this is not about love, same-sex attraction, and tolerance. It's not, because that would mean this was about us and them. The truth of the matter is, this is not about them. This is all about us. There is no them. There is no them. There's only us. And so when we talk about something like this, when I talk about something like this, it will never be an us and them thing, because it's always just us. We are all together. So it's not about tolerance, and it's not about acceptance. It's about this. It's about, if you or someone you love experiences same-sex attraction, we do not tolerate you. You are not accepted. You belong. You belong. This is the case. It's just the truth, and it's not anything dramatic. It's not anything heroic. It's just what is. You belong here. If you experience same-sex attraction, where do you belong? You belong in the Catholic Church. Why? Because you are one of us. There's only us. This whole talk, the next 42 minutes, is going to all be about us. It's all about us. So if you're nervous, you could be nervous, but this is not about you and us. It's about all of us. Amen? Second thing is harder. And this is this. We're going to talk about some hard stuff today. And again, it's not hard stuff for other people. This is hard stuff for all of who? Us. Hard stuff for all of us. And I think sometimes when we start talking about hard things, we start thinking something in us is like, no. Life isn't supposed to be hard. I gave a talk on this topic to a group of college students. So I don't know, it was like 4,000 or 5,000 of them at one point. And I had to start off by saying this. Sometimes we expect life is going to be easy. But here's like some of the best advice you could possibly get. It's the first line of a book by a guy named M. Scott Peck. The book is called The Road Less Traveled. I remember picking it up one day and opening up to chapter 1, page 1, sentence 1. The sentence is this: life is difficult. That's it. Life is difficult. And so many people, we go through life thinking, no, it's not supposed to be difficult. What are you talking about? Like, people are supposed to, we sometimes fall into the trap of thinking that life is supposed to be like you're on a cruise ship. It's supposed to be like this, where you just get to lounge about, on the Lido deck, and people bring you like, daiquiris, and, oh, I don't like this one. Please take it back and bring me another. Like, we think sometimes that I've got a manicure at 10 and I've got a massage at 12. Like, that's the idea. Sometimes we think that's how life's supposed to be. False. Here's piece of advice number 1. Life is difficult. Life is difficult. Life is hard. And if we don't experience difficulty, we don't experience the hardness of life, or if we're afraid of the difficulty, if we're afraid of the hardness of life, that doesn't mean we're afraid of difficulty, that means we're afraid of life. Because to be alive is to encounter difficulty. To be alive is to encounter hardship. To be alive is to be challenged. And if we go through life unchallenged, that means a couple things. That means A, we will never grow. It means B, we don't stand for anything. And it means C, that we're not really living. Because life is difficult. What I'm going to talk about today, for not them, but for, is that life is what? Because if you were expecting life would be a cruise ship, imagine if you were expecting life would be a cruise ship, but you're actually on a warship. Like how disappointed you'd be. I mean, these bombs are going off, people are shooting at you, you're like, what's happening? Why are all these people shooting at us? We're supposed to be doing the limbo. Like, no. Sometimes we treat life like it's a picnic field rather than a battlefield, but life is not a picnic field, life is a battlefield. And if we can wrap our minds around that, then we can start living. Here's some hard things we're going to talk about today. But as we talk about these things, we keep this in mind. Keep in mind, life is difficult. Amen? Okay. I've shared this before, but I'll share it again. Back when I was in seminary, I came home for a long weekend, and my mom had, in the room that I grew up in, she had placed a book on my bed. And I went up to the room, and it was a children's book because that's the reading level my mom thinks I read at. And that was like 5 years ago. I made a lot of progress. The book was read at a funeral that my mom had attended. At the end of the funeral, they came out and they read this book. And it talked about like the next place. It talked about like life after death. Described all these things about here's what life after death is going to be. A lot of it we agree with. It says, in the next place, I'll no longer be sad. In the next place, there'll only be joy. In the next place, I'll see people that I love. In the next place, I'll find peace. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. That sounds legit. Like, check, check, check. But then it kept going and said, in the next place, I'll no longer be fat or thin. I'll no longer be short or tall. I'll no longer be a boy or a girl. In fact, I won't have a body at all, and I'll finally be free to just be me. So I remember coming downstairs, and my mom was like, hey, did you see the book? I'm like, yep. What'd you think? I said, well, it's heresy. My mom was like, but I liked it. I'm like, well, you're a heretic, Mom. Might as well admit it right now, because here's what we believe about a human being. Here's what we believe about the next place. We believe in the resurrection of the body. We believe that actually after you die, you will get your body back. And yes, you will be fat or thin. Yes, you will be tall or short. I'm going to be taller than my current 5'10", I guarantee you. I've always wanted to be 6'2". I don't know, Batman 6'2". I want to be 6'2". I will be. But you will, if you're a girl, you will always be a girl for eternity. If you're a girl, for all eternity, you will have a woman's body. Guys, if you're a guy, for all eternity, you will have a man's body. Ugh. Because why? Because what is a human being? A human being is a soul and a body together. That's what we are. Like, in fact, what do you call a human being without a body? Dead. Yes. A ghost, right? You're a ghost. You're Casper. Like, you're not a full human being, because a human being is a body and a soul together. What do you call a body without a soul? A zombie, I know. Like, someone else was like, a corpse. Oh, I forgot about those. Yes, I go right to the horror movie thing. A body without a soul is a corpse or a zombie. A soul without a body is a ghost. But a human being is a soul and a body together. You are your body. In fact, think about this. People's like, well, I'm not really my body because whatever, my true me is hidden underneath. But here's the deal. People only know you through your body. You only have ever learned anything through your body. Either came in through your eyes, through your ears, through your taste buds, through your senses, or you thought about it with your brain, also part of your body. I don't know, FYI. Like this, we are our bodies. In fact, we do this thing sometimes where I'd say, young man, could you please stand up in the red shirt? Could you come up on the 4th step right here? Come on. Sir, what is your name?
I'm Patrick.
Everyone, please look at Patrick's body. Take a look at Patrick's body. Take it in. Patrick, give us a twirl. Patrick's body, everyone. Thank you, Patrick. Good job. Now, again, it's one of those kind of dumb examples, but like, if I were to say, look at Patrick, what would you have looked at? I would have seen his soul. No, you wouldn't have. You would have looked at his body. Why? Because Patrick's body is Patrick. Patrick's body is Patrick. And you can't know Patrick unless you have that intermediary of his body. Here's what I mean. You are your body. You are your body. Conclusion of that is this. If you are your body, then what you do with your body matters. If you are your body, then what you do with your body actually makes a difference. Not just like, well, my heart was in the right place. That's wonderful. But your heart is also a part of your body. So your body matters. If you are your body, what you do with your body matters. Amen? Okay, so we know these things. It's not us and them, it's just. We also know that life is not easy, life is. And if you are your body, what you do with your body. Great, let's have some philosophy. Philosophy 101. Philosophy 101, we talk about nature, the nature of a thing. You know, the nature of a thing is this. It's a technical word for the what it isness of a thing. Like, what is a thing? Well, that's the nature of a thing. So here's the thing. What is this? Chair. I love chair. This is a chair. Now, philosophers would say this participates in what they call chairness. So participates in the essence of chair because have you ever seen a chair that looks different than this? Yes, this one is made of metal, it's made of plastic. You've seen chairs made of wood, you've seen chairs made of cushion, you've seen chairs made of wicker, you've seen chairs made of beans with a bag wrapped around it. Like, we've seen all these different kind of chairs. So the what it isness of it, though, is it's a chair. Amen? How do I know that this is a chair? How do I know the what it isness of a thing? I know it if I understand the what it is forness of a thing. The what it is forness of a thing points to the what it isness of a thing. Amenness? Amenness. So what is a chair for? To sit upon. Correct. So now, the chair is living up to the end for which it was created. The end for which it was created? What? Okay, so this chair, the what it is forness of a chair, reveals the what it isness of a chair. It's for sitting upon, therefore it is a chair. Now, we don't just have chairs, we also have these things like a table. What it is forness of this thing? To set stuff on, exactly. Well done, you guys must be at least be in high school. So now, here I am, allowing the table to accomplish the end for which it is made. Boom. Wow. You guys, no. Okay, now, it gets crazier. It gets crazier. So, the end of a table, the goal, the purpose of a table, the what it is forness is to set stuff on. The end of a chair is to sit upon. Watch this. What is happening? It's craziness. I just set something upon something that was made to be sat upon. Here's a question. Have you ever sat on a table? I will sit on the end of this table. Now, here's the thing. With the chair, am I violating the nature of a chair to set something on it? No. Am I violating the nature of the table to sit on it? No. So a thing can have an end, a thing can have a purpose, and you can use it for your own purposes, your own ends, right? Amen. Yeah, of course. Okay, here's a quick question. What is the nature of an axe? To chop, yeah, to cut. Now, you could use that axe to chop wood. You could use that axe to chop apples. You could use that axe to chop zombies. You could, Patrick, where's Patrick? Where'd he go? Where's his body? There he is. You could use that axe to go up to Patrick's body and just chop at his t-shirt. No, if you were to use that axe to chop up Patrick's body, would you be, if you used it to kill a non-zombie Patrick, would you be violating the nature of an axe? No. Would you be doing something wrong? Well, we don't know. He seemed kind of sketchy, didn't he, when he came up? Maybe he deserves being chopped a little bit. I don't know. Yes, you'd be doing something wrong, obviously, but you wouldn't be violating the nature of an axe. Now, what if you were to take that axe and start driving in with the blade, start driving in railroad spikes? Would you pretty quickly begin violating the nature of the axe? Yeah. What if you were to take this chair, put up a big stump, and start splitting wood on top of this chair? Would you pretty quickly violate the nature of chair? Yeah. What if you were to take this table and try to prop your car up to change the oil? Would you pretty quickly violate the nature of table? Yeah, of course you would. Now, so here's the thing. Everything that has a nature has an end, has a purpose. Sometimes we can use that to our own purposes. It doesn't violate it. Sometimes we use it for our own purposes, and it actually disintegrates the thing. Amen? So how we use it either fulfills its purpose or violates and disintegrates the purpose. With that in mind, let's talk about sex. I know that's what you're all here for. That's why all of the people at Steubenville came here, because you're all a bunch of perverts. So we might as well talk about what you want to talk about. Fine. So here's a question. If you were a perverted scientist, alien, just kidding. If you were a scientist, an alien scientist, come down to Earth to study human beings, to study the world, and you were to see sex, the sexual act, what would the what it is forness of it be, of the sexual act? What's it for? Babies. It's for babies. That's right. It is for at least two purposes. Because biologically speaking, even, babies, duh. You hear some of them like, seriously? Is that what happens? Yes. Babies is the what it is forness of the sexual embrace. Another is bonding. The bonding of the couple. In fact, there's multiple studies that demonstrate that when a couple enters into the sexual embrace, their bodies release certain chemicals that actually help them bond together, help them remain faithful to each other. So there's two ends, what it is fornesses of the sexual act. Procreation and unity, or babies, and bonding. But it's getting warm, so let's stop talking about sex. Let's talk about eating. Let's talk about food. So here's, if you were to study food, we're fans of food over here. If you're studying food, studying eating, what are the two ends, the what it is fornesses of eating? Nourishment and pleasure, yeah, because it's good. Good stuff tastes good, so I want to eat more of it. So you have eating for nourishment, you have eating for pleasure. These are two what it is fornesses. This is just what happens when you eat food. You get nourished and you get enjoyment. Now, show of hands, has there ever been a time in your life when you didn't have a lot of time, you're racing late for school, and so rather than sitting down and enjoying your meal, you just grabbed a power bar or something like this and scarfed it down on the way to school? Has anyone ever done this? Okay, in those moments, were you eating for pleasure? No, you were just eating for nourishment, right? Now, when you did that, were you violating the nature of eating? No, because you weren't violating pleasure, you just weren't having any. Now, has there ever been a situation where you went out to eat, and you had a great meal, you're full, and the waitress or waiter comes along with this, the dessert tray? Would you like the double chocolate cake? And you're like, I'm so full, I couldn't possibly eat it. And yes, please. Now, in that case, as you're enjoying your double chocolate cake, are you eating for nourishment? No. No. You do not need any more nourishment. Are you eating for pleasure? In eating for pleasure than for nourishment, are you violating the integrity of eating? No, not at all. What if, and this is where it gets sensitive, I apologize for this. Because I mean, there's many, many people here in this room right now. I know this is one of something you wrestle with. What if someone was to eat something for the pleasure of it, but then work against the nourishment by making themselves throw up? Would they be violating the very integrity, the very nature of eating? Yeah. And the thing is with that is, again, I want to be sensitive with this because I know there's people in this room, like that might have even been your breakfast. That might even been today. This might have even been this last week for you. And you know how painful that is because you know someone could say, well, it's not a big deal. You're just eating a little bit, then throwing up, you're fine. But if you've ever experienced this in your life, and I know so many young people I've spoken with have experienced this, it's not just about violating the integrity of eating. It actually, you feel this, don't you? You feel it's like violating my personal integrity. It's like I'm actually being torn apart when I do this. Because even though animals also eat, when humans eat, it becomes a human act. And if I violate intentionally the nature of that human act, I actually violate me. That's why I want to be so sensitive, because I know that you know this. You know the pain of being stuck in that place. That when I violate the nature of eating, I feel like I'm torn apart. I feel like I'm out of control. I feel like I'm not me. How much even more serious would it be when it comes to sex? Because if the two ends of sex, the two goals, what it is, fornesses of the nature of sex is that it's for babies and for bonding. Are there times possibly when here's a couple and they're trying to achieve pregnancy and the woman's like, okay, hey, I'm ovulating right now, so let's go make a baby. And they enter the sexual embrace more to achieve babies than to achieve bonding. Are they violating the nature of sex? No, it's just more emphasis on one than the other. Now, there also could be times when a husband and wife enter into the sexual embrace, not really intending children, but they're like, this is a great moment. I want to enter into this moment of intimacy with you. So they're there more for the intimacy and the union than they are for babies. Are they violating the nature, the integrity of the sexual embrace? No, but what if the husband and or wife or both were to try intentionally to violate, to stop the openness to life, to stop there being a possibility that we could achieve pregnancy? They're working against one of the very ends, one of the very reasons, the very nature of sex. Would they pretty quickly be violating the nature of sex? Yeah. The same goes for the other. Here is someone who takes advantage of someone else simply to conceive and violates the nature of intimacy. That could be rape, that could be prostitution, it could be surrogacy. So we see that in order to have this integrity of our hearts as human beings, we need to keep the integrity of human actions. If we want to keep the integrity of human beings, we need to retain the integrity of human actions. And if eating as a human being is a very human act, entering into the sexual embrace as a human being is a very, very human act. And I can't work against either procreation through contraception or other actions that are not open to life, or work against the nature of sex through something like prostitution or rape or in vitro fertilization or surrogacy without violating the very nature of the human being. And here's the thing, if I violate the integrity of sex, not only does sex disintegrate, we end up disintegrating. Did you know that the rates of divorce for those who practice contraception is over 50%? For Catholic couples that don't use contraception, you know what? Guess what? Just right now in your mind, hold that number. Like, what do you think the divorce rate is for Catholic couples who do not practice contraception? Maybe like if the normal rate is like 50, 55%, well, maybe it's 40. Maybe it's half. Maybe it's only 25. The rate of divorce for Catholic couples who do not practice contraception is less than 2%. Why? What's that point to? That points to, if I intentionally violate the sexual embrace through contraception, I violate marriage, I violate my own heart. I can't do it without tearing myself apart. Because we believe that reality teaches us something. I'm not even going to talk about the Bible hardly. We believe that reality teaches us something. And if you were to study scientifically, what's the end of sex? You would say it's for babies and it's for bonding. And if I work against either one of those, I end up becoming disintegrated. This is a hard teaching, but that's okay because life is not easy. Life is difficult. And not only this, you know what the rest of the world is going to say? You can't handle this. The rest of the world is going to say that you can't handle this, so you know what? Give them condoms. You can't handle this, so you know what? Give them contraception. You can't handle this, so give them some kind of birth control. I think the Catholic Church respects you enough to say, you don't need birth control, you need self-control. Like you don't, here's the thing. If I don't trust you, I'm going to try to take your power away from you. If I don't trust you, I'm going to try to take your power away from you. The Catholic Church says this. No. You're made to be powerful. You are made to be powerful, but to know how to use that power, not just for good things, for great things. And that's one of the reasons why the church says, no. We don't work against intimacy. We don't work against procreation. We say, married couples, we trust you. But retain your power. Don't give it away. Self-control, not birth control. Is this teaching easy? No, this teaching is difficult. I talk to so many married couples who have to live this out. And they're like, oh, Father, it's so hard. Like, seriously, sometimes there's going to be like a month at a time where like, for like out of every 4 weeks, for like maybe a little over a week, like my spouse and I, we can't enter into the sexual embrace. Like, really? That means like the other more or less 3/4 of the month, you just totally can? Yeah, it's really tough. I'm like, nice. Because you know how many weeks of the month I get to have sex? Try 0. But that's okay because life's not easy, life is. And this call is not for less power, this call is for more power. This call is for not less freedom, it's for more freedom. And I believe we can live up to this. That's because it's not about them and us, it's just about. So if this is true when it comes to sex, that all sexual acts have to be open to life. With married couples, that also is the case when it comes to single people, when it comes to people who experience heterosexual attraction, those who experience homosexual attraction. All sexual acts, in order for them to have their integrity, have to be open to the possibility of life. If they don't, if I enter into sexual acts that are not open to life, I'm violating the very integrity of sex. And if I do that, I find myself being disintegrated. That's why this is not about them and us. Every human being. If you enter into the sexual embrace, it always has to be open to life. This is what the Catholic Church's teaching is when it comes to same-sex attraction. It's not about those people over there. They can't do this, but we can do whatever we want. It's all of us may only enter into sexual acts that are open to life. Question for the biologists in the room. Are there any homosexual sexual acts that are open to life? There is one biologist in the room. No, there's none. There are no homosexual sexual acts open to life. And so here's what it just comes down to. The church's teaching on same-sex attraction is not, oh, those people are bad. Oh, those people are gross. Oh, those people they want weird things. Nope, we all want weird things. I know you're all weird. No, it's true. I remember when this man I love more than anyone in the world, my best friend, I'm closer to him than anyone I've ever known in my whole life. When a number of years ago, he said, hey, I want to talk to you about something. Great, so we went for a walk along Lake Superior, and he's talking, he says, okay, so I need to tell you, so I'm gay. I said, okay, I said, okay, well, I love you, and I gave him a hug, we're standing there, gave him a hug, and I'm like, how are you doing? He's like, I'm good, I just never told anyone, I needed to tell you this, and, do you have any questions? I was like, well, this is like a news interview. That's my statement. Do you have any questions? I'll take questions. Yes, USA Today. And do you have any questions? And I was like, what do you mean, do I have any questions? Well, he's like, well, I've always felt this way. I'm like, okay. Would you want to know how long I felt it? Well, you just told me, always. I believe you. I don't know. He's like, do you want to know, I'm like, no, the only question I have is, what are you going to do? And he looked at me and said, what do you mean, what am I going to do? I just told you I'm gay. I was like, all you told me is that you just described an experience you have. It's a big one, it's been a big factor in his life, but all you've done is you just told me something you experienced, something you happen to be attracted to. The Catholic Church doesn't teach that any attraction is a sin. Someone says, well, I'm attracted to members of the same sex. Someone says, I'm attracted to members of the opposite sex. Okay. I have an inclination to get really angry right away. All right. I have an inclination to be super arrogant. Okay. What are you going to do with that? One of my buddies, he said this, he's always pointed this out. He said, ever since I was young, ever since I was a kid, ever since I can remember me being me, he says, I've been super cocky. He says, I've always been the cockiest kid I've ever known in my whole life. And then I come along to meet the gospel, and Jesus says something like, come and follow me, for I'm gentle and humble of heart. It's like, Jesus, you don't know, I'm cocky. I've always been cocky. I'll always be cocky. No, what are you going to do with that? What do you mean, what am I going to do with that? That's my experience. Yes, it's your experience. It's not your identity. It's your experience. It's not your identity. This is one of the things that's just so important for all of us to hear. And I say, all of who? All of us to hear. This is not for them. This is for all of us, because there's only is your experience is not your identity. Because as I was talking to this guy, he thought he had dropped a bomb in my life about like our relationship and our friendship and how close we were. Like, what are you going to do now? Any questions? I was like, man, if it wasn't this, it'd be something else. I was so honored that he would tell me. I was like, but if it wasn't this, it'd be something else. Because everyone struggles. Everyone has issues. Every one of us is attracted to stuff that we probably shouldn't be attracted to. Every one of us. And every one of us has to face that thing in us that we just wish was not there. We wish it would be easier. But life isn't easy. Life is. And one of the biggest tasks of life is this, is to face that thing in us that we wish wasn't there and learn to accept it. One of the biggest tasks that any of us will ever have to do is to face the thing in our life that we wish wasn't there and accept that, okay, this is what I got to deal with. This is my reality. I mentioned the food thing earlier. There are so many people in this room who experience that you hate your body. At some point we have to say, yeah, I don't know, I see myself in a way that I probably shouldn't see myself. But rather than just yelling at myself, I just, okay, that's the truth. Now, what am I going to do with that? There's so many people in this room, when it comes to sexuality, one of the ways that brokenness comes out is through looking at porn. Like, I hate this about myself. Okay, fine. At some point, you got to just come to terms with like, okay, I hate this about myself. I accept it. This is part of my reality. Part of my cross is I have to learn how to live with this. I have to learn how to walk with this. I have to learn how to deal with this. Because if we fight against reality, you can never win. This young man from our diocese, awesome kid. And he told me this. He told me that he grew up coming to this with us. He grew up coming to our camps and stuff. And he just absolutely knew that Jesus loved him. But here's the thing. He knew ever since he was maybe 9th grade, 10th grade, he's like, wait a second. When the guys are talking about the cute girl they're noticing, I'm kind of noticing the cute guy. Like, what's wrong with me? And this guy, he started praying really hard. And he would go into prayer, and he'd go into adoration, and he'd say, okay, God, I know you kind of sort of love me, but you need to do this. You need to change me. I know you kind of sort of love me, but you need to take this away from me. And every time he went to prayer, he was like, okay, God, you got to fix me. Okay, God, you got to take this away. God, I don't want this to be in my life. I don't want to have this attraction. So you have to fix me. And this kind of thing, what he was saying when you have to fix me is like this. God, you have to fix me or you couldn't possibly love me. God, you have to fix me or I couldn't possibly belong in your church. What he was identifying He's identifying his wound with himself. That's not his identity. Your experience is not your identity. I remember one day, John Paul II, he looked at me and he said, I was at World Youth Day, it was like 1 million people. But he looked at me and he said this, he said, you are not the sum of your wounds, your weaknesses, or your failures. You are not the sum of your wounds, your weaknesses, or your failures. You are the sum of the Father's love for you and your capacity to be the image of Christ to the world. Your experience is not your identity. Because all of us have broken experiences. And if our experience is our identity, our broken experience means I have a broken identity. This kid, he would go to prayer, you got to take this away, God. You got to take this away, or you couldn't possibly love me. Until one day, he walked into our cathedral during adoration. And he knelt down and he started to say the same prayer, God, you got to take it away. When he just looked at the Eucharist and he said, actually, Jesus, this is here. And I know you're calling me to chastity. I know you're calling me not to act out sexually. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to accept that this is part of my story. I'm going to accept this as part of my experience. And I'm going to just let you love me how I am. I'm going to know that I belong in your church as I am. Because your experience is not your identity. And so this man has dedicated himself. He said, I'm gonna live, I know how I feel, I know what I'm attracted to. I'm going to choose chastity. Because yes, I know my experiences, but I also know what Jesus' call is. Now when I say that, I know that some people are like, well, Father, like, chastity, you're basically saying this kid has to be alone the rest of his life. And then when I hear that, I think, like, what do you think chastity is? Because I actually thought chastity was that. I thought celibacy was you have to be alone the rest of your life. In fact, that's one of the things that kept me out of seminary for years. Is I always imagined that, like, you go to seminary, you become a priest or maybe a religious sister and stuff, and then you just basically rest of your life, like, you're just lonely. I imagine myself sitting in my old, like, drafty rectory, you know, the wind rattling the windows, and I'm sitting on a rocking chair with an Afghan on my lap, and rocking back and forth, stroking my cat. Just looking out the window, just all lonely. Wish there was someone I could have sex with. Like, what? Because that's what we do, right? We think, here's what John Paul II said. John Paul II said, man cannot live without love. Man cannot live without love. He said, without love, man remains a being. When he says man, he means all of us, right? Man remains a being incomprehensible to himself. His life remains senseless if he doesn't love, if he doesn't experience love, if he doesn't become a gift of love. Now, we can hear that in our modern day and age. We think that, because what we've done with love, this big term love, we've taken this huge term love, we've reduced it to romance. And we've taken this term romance, and we've reduced it to sex. So when we hear John Paul II say these words, we translate them as, man cannot live without sex. Without sex, man remains a being incomprehensible to himself. His life is senseless if he doesn't have sex and give sex and get sex. Like, that's not what he's saying. He's saying man cannot live without love. With this young man, in that adoration day, he realized this, okay, I'm called to chastity. I experience this, I accept it. But here's the thing, he had always grown up thinking that a call to be a celibate gay man or woman meant just no. I just have to say no the rest of my life. What he realized as the Lord was calling his heart is like, well, actually, no one has a vocation to know, because you have a vocation to love. And love is always starts with a no, but ends with a yes. I say no to this moment so I can say yes to something even greater. Because everyone is made for love. And that love, you guys, that love has to be bigger than sex. That love has to be bigger than a romance. In fact, I do so much marriage prep with couples, and they all think they're special, and they all are special. All these couples think they're one of the things that they think makes them special is they all say, like, you know, I'm not just in love with their father. She's my best friend. I'm like, okay, yeah, I believe you. No, you don't understand. This isn't just love. She's my best friend. I'm like, I get it. Yeah, that's what every husband says. It's really nice. Like, no, but that's the thing. We all realize this. We all realize that there's something greater than romance. Like the highest form of love before Jesus' love, like self-sacrificial love is friendship. I remember giving a talk at a university campus on this topic. And beforehand, it was kind of funny. Beforehand, this girl came up to me and she said, "Oh, Father, when I was in high school, I used to listen to your podcasts." And she kind of emphasized the used to. I was like, "Oh, thank you, I think." After the talk, she said, "I appreciate what you said." She had raised her hand. She said, "I appreciate what you said. But I have to tell you, my girlfriend and I have the best relationship I've ever could imagine. She is so generous, and she makes me generous. She is so kind and patient, and she makes me kind and patient. Like the time we spend together, she builds me up, and I have the opportunity to build her up. Like, I know she always supports me, and I get to support her." And then she threw it down, like, "What would you say about that?" And I said, "Sounds awesome." She's like, "What are you talking about? You just said it was..." No. I said, everything she just described, I have this great friendship with this woman, and she's so good and kind and generous and loving and patient, and she lifts me up, and I do the same to her. The church would say, "Awesome." The church would say, "Fantastic." All of those things we would affirm. All of those things we'd say, "Man, you found someone who is a friend like that, wonderful." Now, if she would also have said, "And we sometimes engage in genital sexual expression of that affection," I'd say, "Well, that's the one thing the church says don't do." But every other thing, the church would say, "Great." Real friendship, awesome. Companionship, wonderful. Love, great. The only restriction is essentially three things, but genital sexual expression of that, marriage and kids. Because that's how those things go. They all are connected. Now, I know that in this moment, and you only have a couple minutes left. In this moment, you can say, "Well, yeah, but if you tell people these things, you say no to people like this." I mean, if we actually lived out what the church says, I don't know. I don't want to go to a place where people who experience same-sex attraction are bullied. I don't want to create a world in which people who experience same-sex attraction are persecuted, or people who experience same-sex attraction experience this incredible degree of discrimination. And I would say, you're right. Neither does the church. In fact, what does the church say? How does the church say you and I need to treat our brothers and sisters who experience same-sex attraction? Here's what the church says. It says, it uses the term they, but just because. They must be accepted with respect. This is from the Catechism of the Catholic Church, by the way. So official church teaching. They must be accepted with respect, compassion, and sensitivity. It didn't say they must be bullied, made fun of, and mocked. No, in fact, the church commands you and I, if you have a brother or sister, if you yourself experience same-sex attraction, then you must accept your brother and sister with respect, compassion, and sensitivity. Every sign of unjust discrimination in their regard must be avoided. Here's what the church teaches when it comes to same-sex attraction. It's like, okay, thank you for sharing that this is one of the things you experience. It doesn't define you. You're more than that. You're one of us. You're one of us. Last two things. And yet it's so hard to feel like you belong. So, one sec. My little brother came to this conference. And he sat where you're all sitting. And he felt like he didn't belong. The man I love more than anyone in the world came here, heard about God's love, about how he belonged in the church, and he would pray, but then when the Eucharist would come to him, he would say, "God, I know that you love me, but I bet you'd love me more if I didn't experience this desire. God, everyone up here is telling me that you love me, but if they all knew, that I think men are more attractive than women, they would not. No one would love me." I was talking with him, just a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about tattoos. It was weird. Talking about tattoos, and I said, what tattoo would you get if you could get a tattoo? And he said, "I think I'd get a swan." And I did that. I was like, what, a swan? What you looking at, swan? And I was like making fun of like this swan, dude. Get an eagle, fighting war, whatever, And he said, no, I would get a swan because he said, because my whole life, I've feel like I didn't belong. Look at everyone around me, and I was like, they're all amazing ducks. I'm just an ugly duck. Because you can tell me that I'm loved and stuff, but I don't feel like everyone else says I should feel. And so I'm an ugly duck. So I don't belong here. But then when he said I came out of the closet, and I realized I'm not a duck, I'm a swan. And while I disagree, I'd say, dude, you're a duck, you're just different color wings, I don't know, whatever. The thing that just killed me, broke my heart, was like, I love you more than I loved anyone in my life. And he knows I love him more than I loved anyone in my life. But he still felt like he didn't belong. You know whose fault that is? The fault doesn't belong to them. The fault belongs to us. I don't know how I did it. I must have made him feel like he couldn't tell me. I must have made him feel like, unless he was the guy lived up to like what I feel, then he didn't belong. And that's just not true. Here's what I want. Here's what I want so much. That every person in this room, every person in the world knows this, and knows it without qualification, is that if you experience anything, it doesn't matter what you experience, you belong here. I can't always do what I want. I can't always act on my desires, but then none of us can. FYI, or for example, I'm attracted to women. And the church says, don't act on that. And I say, you got it. Can't always do what we want. We can still always belong. And I can't wait. I can't wait for the day. I know it's coming at some point. Because the Catechism says, right after it says that to be accepted, respect, compassion, and sensitivity, it says this. It says, by self-mastery that leads towards freedom. We're all called to that. With the support of friendship, we're all called to that. By prayer and sacramental grace, we all need that. They can and should resolutely approach Christian perfection. It's called sainthood. Church says, if you experience this, you know what God has in store for you? Life of loneliness? No. Agony? Not really. The church says, you experience? Okay, you're called to be a saint. I can't wait for the day when the church gets up and says, this man, that woman, a chaste, celibate gay man, a chaste, celibate lesbian woman, one of our own, saint in heaven now. Saint so-and-so, saint sister, saint brother. Who knows? That person could be here right now. The person could be here right now in this church, in this building. If you're a woman, experience same-sex attraction, you're called to love. Man, experience same-sex attraction, you're called to love. You could be the saint that the world is dying to see. Because you belong here.